Well, thank you very much for having me and for joining this incredibly important conversation that's unfolding. I thank CTIA, their leadership, and continuing to partner closely with the Department of Defense in this conversation about not only spectrum in a larger sense, but specifically mid-band and 5G. I hope to dispel a couple things, and if I leave you with anything, this is about partnership. And we're genuinely interested in ensuring we maintain a partnership with industry, academia, and certainly the interagency to solve hard problems. I think I'd begin with 4 things that I'd like to talk to you about, and the first is competitive advantage. This idea about competitive advantage is unreal and frankly more elusive in our business than it has been in the past. I offer to you that the world that we're living in is increasing in its danger and volatility. And in order for your Department of Defense to achieve competitive advantage is becoming more and more difficult. One of the things in the past that have occurred is that we find ourselves taking the economics and placing it potentially in direct conflict with the military power. And I think what we have to understand is that from a Department of Defense perspective, Department of Defense and military power is driven by economic power. So from a Department of Defense perspective, we want economic interests and power to be advanced because that's how military power is derived. I offer also that as we advanced competitive advantage against adversaries, it's sometimes quick to talk about the capabilities, but it's really about the deterrent value. Think about the adversaries and how they adjust their decision calculus of activities that they would or would not do in terms of the U.S. national interests and our allies, both here and abroad. Deterrence plays a real part of this, and the way you deter your adversaries is to have a capability holistically that they would not wish to encounter. But when deterrence does fail, you want to be able to have the Department of Defense to lean on along with its allies and partners. So this comes to the second thing I'd like to describe is the importance of spectrum and 5G to the Department of Defense. EMS, of course, is a finite resource. I don't have to tell this audience that, and therefore we had this conversation. And in the past, we've had conversations largely about winning and losing. I think there is an opportunity for win-win, and I think it would be short on our part collectively to not propose win-win solutions for the national leaders as they consider about this important resource. Department of Defense use EMS from radios to radars and everything in between, and as you might imagine, they specifically design capabilities to operate in particular parts of the electromagnetic spectrum for the purposes of optimizing performance. Not because it's available, but to optimize the performance. And the reason you want to optimize your performance is if deterrence fails, you want the greatest capability to be in the hands of your soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and guardians. So we have hundreds of capabilities that are in critical bands of electromagnetic spectrum, and the purpose is for them to be optimized. And the future capabilities that we hope to have for the Joint Force are only going to increase the demand on electromagnetic spectrum. And I would imagine from an industry perspective, you would say the exact statement. And if that's the case, we are left with a couple of choices. We can work together to solve a hard problem, or we could potentially sub-optimize the capabilities that defend the homeland and deliver lethal capability. Right now overseas, whether it's in the Middle East or whether it's in the plains on the east side of Europe, we're watching determined adversaries determine the way forward and the lethality of future warfare. And that involves a lot of autonomy. It involves long-range fires. And in order to defeat that, the capabilities that you would want in place to defend it both at home and abroad with your allies and partners require electromagnetic spectrum to be optimized. Our adversaries are modernizing, and they're not defending their homelands differently than we. They're buying more capability, not less. They're buying smaller capability, not larger. They're going faster than ever before, not slower. And they're maneuverable and not predictable. And because of this, you would want to optimize the defenses against that capability. So when I think about that as the pre-context of the mandate, what are the opportunities? The opportunities is we're in a different place than where we're used to be. Conversations about spectrum in the past have largely been about compressing, vacating, auctioning, and making available. We're in a different place technically because there are real opportunities for technical solutions to be applied where we can harmoniously operate. Not only here in the homeland, where we train, because you want to train as you fight, but also overseas. I offer that we can, in this context, unlock the full potential of 5G, because you also look at it through the lens of service members' quality of life. 5G is delivered all over the continental United States in points where our servicemen and women are stationed along with their families. So they find this as a quality of life issue. And I offer to you that we don't discount that. So this isn't always about the next fight. It's also about the quality of life that 5G fully realized rolls out. So imagine a world where economics and military instruments of power are not at odds, and where we can propose win-wins. And instead of making hard decisions, we're solving hard problems together. We've recently heard from Honorable Sherman, the DoD CIO, about the dynamic spectrum sharing moonshot, as it's referred to. But it's not the only initiative, but it's certainly the principal Department of Defense initiative around which we hope to be able to innovate with partners in industry, academia, and across the interagency. Teamwork is the fuel that allows common people to do uncommon things. And I think as we talk about the opportunity for us to partner, far too often the Department of Defense is labeled uninnovative. I find that interesting because if you've been on a battlefield as of late, there's a tremendous amount of innovation, there's a tremendous amount of capability, and it all is driven from the teammates that are on the front lines dealing with the challenge of the adversary each and every day. But we do have an opportunity to innovate, and we have to innovate together because I believe it's in both of our interests. When you think about the national defense interests, and you think about the economic interests, and the interests of the quality of life you presume that you would wish to deliver to the American population, all of those, I believe, can exist harmoniously. So the final thing I offer is a call to action. This is an opportunity for us to innovate together and commit our partnership. I offer from the Department of Defense, and certainly I am confident speaking on behalf of Honorable Sherman as well, is that the Department of Defense is committed to solving this problem. And we know we can't partner, or correction, we can't solve it without your partnership. We need the best and brightest. We need your perspectives. We need everyone to lean in so that we can innovate together. And then I offer to you finally is that coming together is a beginning, staying together is progress, but working together is success. And in this case, we hope to be able to innovate with all of you to meet the demand of the spectrum needs for the national security, but also for our industry partners and for our nation in a larger sense. So I appreciate again the opportunity to present this perspective. I've listened back stage and was incredibly inspired by the last several speakers, to include the last one regarding football. Football is a team sport. And I hope to be able to rely on all of you as teammates as we innovate to solve this hard problem. Thank you very much.